I'm James, 33, married to Emma, 31, for the last 7 years. We met in college, fell in love quickly, and got married 2 years after graduation. Emma is the kind of person everyone loves. She's funny, kind-hearted, and has a way of making you feel like you're the most important person in the room. I've always loved her, but love isn't always enough. We both have high-stress jobs. She works as a nurse, and I'm in marketing for a tech company. Our lives have gotten busier over the years. We don't spend as much time together as we used to, and when we do, it feels like we're two ships passing in the night, too exhausted to connect. A couple of months ago, Emma started picking up extra shifts at the hospital, working long hours. I didn't blame her. The money was good, and she genuinely loves helping people. But I couldn't shake the loneliness creeping in. I miss the warmth we used to have, the late-night conversations, the effortless closeness. It started to feel like we were just roommates rather than partners. That's when I met Sophie. Sophie's entrance. Sophie is a colleague of mine. She joined my team about a year ago, and we hit it off instantly. She's smart, funny, and ambitious, everything that draws you in. We'd grab lunch together sometimes, but it always felt casual, harmless. We'd joke around, vent about work, and share stories about our lives. At first, it was nothing. I never thought much of it, but slowly, things started to change. Emma and I were drifting apart more and more. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was about household chores or bills. It was like the spark had died, and I didn't know how to bring it back. Meanwhile, Sophie and I were getting closer. She was easy to talk to, and before I knew it, we were texting outside of work hours. It started with random memes and harmless jokes, but over time, the conversations grew more personal. I told her things I wasn't telling Emma about how I felt disconnected, how I missed the emotional connection in my marriage. Sophie listened in a way that felt refreshing. She understood me. I found myself looking forward to seeing her at work, to the sound of her voice, to the laughter we shared. But I still didn't think I'd crossed that line. The shift. One Friday evening, after a particularly stressful work week, Sophie and I decided to grab drinks. Emma was working the night shift, and it seemed innocent enough. Just two colleagues blowing off steam. We sat in a dimly lit bar, sipping cocktails and talking about everything except work for once. The conversation flowed easily, and after a couple of drinks, the mood shifted. The glances we exchanged felt charged, like something unspoken had been hanging in the air between us, waiting to be acknowledged. I should have stopped it right there. I knew what was happening, but I didn't. Sophie reached across the table and lightly touched my hand as she laughed at something I said. My heart raced. I knew that touch meant something more, but I didn't pull away. Instead, I leaned into it. After the third drink, we decided to leave the bar. I should have gone home, but instead, we walked together. The night was quiet, and the tension between us grew with every step. As we reached her car, there was a moment of silence. We stood there, close enough to feel the heat between us. Sophie looked up at me, and I knew what was coming. I don't want to be just friends anymore, James, she said, her voice barely a whisper. My stomach tightened. I could hear my conscience screaming at me to stop, to turn around and walk away, but I didn't. Instead, I kissed her. It wasn't a tentative kiss. It was intense, desperate, full of the longing I'd been bottling up for months, and once I crossed that line, everything spiraled. The affair. That kiss led to more. We started an affair. At first, I told myself it was just physical, that it didn't mean anything, but deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Sophie filled a void that I hadn't realized had grown so large. She gave me attention, affection, and passion that I hadn't felt in a long time. The affair wasn't just about sex. Although the physical chemistry between us was undeniable, it was the way she made me feel alive again. When I was with her, I wasn't the tired, stressed-out version of myself that Emma barely saw anymore. I felt wanted, needed. We kept things discreet, sneaking around, meeting at hotels, late-night drives where we'd talk for hours. But the more time I spent with Sophie, the more distant I became with Emma. I started avoiding Emma, making excuses to work late or take solo trips under the guise of work conferences. I hated lying to her, but I couldn't stop. I was addicted to the thrill, to the escape that Sophie provided. I justified it by telling myself that Emma and I weren't in love anymore, that she was too busy for me, that she wouldn't care if she found out. But the truth is, I was terrified. I knew that if she ever found out, it would destroy her and us. As the affair continued, the guilt began to eat away at me. I'd lie in bed next to Emma, feeling like a complete fraud. She was still the same caring, loving person she'd always been, and I was betraying her in the worst way possible. There were moments when I wanted to come clean, to tell her everything and beg for forgiveness. But I couldn't. I didn't want to lose her. I still loved her, but I didn't know how to fix what I'd broken. The guilt wasn't just about Emma. I also felt guilty about Sophie. She was falling for me, and I knew I couldn't give her what she wanted, a real relationship. I couldn't leave Emma. I didn't want to, but I also couldn't stop seeing Sophie. I was trapped in a cycle of deceit and betrayal, and I didn't know how to get out. The breaking point. Everything came crashing down one evening when Emma found a message on my phone. I was careless, too comfortable in my lies. She saw a text from Sophie that I hadn't bothered to delete. It wasn't explicit, but it was enough to raise suspicion. I came home to find Emma sitting on the couch, my phone in her hand. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. "Who is she?" she asked, her voice trembling. My heart dropped. I knew this was it, the moment I'd been dreading. I tried to lie at first, to say she was just a colleague, but Emma wasn't buying it. She pressed me, demanding the truth, and eventually, I broke. I confessed everything, the affair, the lies, the deceit. I told her how lonely I'd felt, how I didn't know how to fix us. Emma didn't yell, she didn't scream, she just sat there, tears streaming down her face, her silence more painful than any word she could have said. "I thought we were happy," she whispered. "I thought we were okay." I didn't know what to say. I had broken her trust, shattered the foundation of our marriage. The aftermath. That was 3 weeks ago. Emma hasn't spoken to me since. She moved in with her sister while we figure out what to do next. I've been staying in our apartment, surrounded by the memories of what we used to be. Sophie? I ended things with her. I told her I couldn't keep going like this, that I needed to figure out my marriage. She was heartbroken, but she understood. We haven't spoken since. I'm lost. I don't know if Emma will ever forgive me, or if I even deserve her forgiveness. I don't know if our marriage can survive this. All I know is that I made the biggest mistake of my life, and I don't know how to make it right.